And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby 411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and this is a recap of Major League Rugby's 2023 kickoff week number one in the books. And what an exciting week of Major League Rugby action we had. Some, in my opinion, some surprising results, some things that were not so surprising, and some milestones achieved by Major League Rugby. Also, of course, we will be doing our usual analysis of our SuperBru results in our MLR Rugby 411 SuperBru Pick'em Pool. So we have a somewhat of a surprising winner at the top, though I'm pretty sure he does not believe it is a shock. I'll admit it was a very tough week for me. Again, thank you very much for everybody that has joined our pool, our little league. 18 people, much more than we had last season. So I'm very glad about it. And again, I'll remind people, you can still join. We had a few players that jumped into our league a couple weeks in. Actually, the person that is on top of the league right now jumped in a couple weeks after the beginning of last season and did very well. Just because you missed the first week or two doesn't mean you're out of the running for anything. Just try to join as quickly as possible, and it's absolutely free. I'll go more into detail when we talk about those results. But as always, what I do here we'll analyze the results, and then I'm also going to put my power rankings for Major League Rugby teams after week one. Now, for those of you who are new, these power rankings are based not necessarily by win-loss records, but how you performed on the pitch. Also, too, it is based really on consistency and more of what you've done recently than what you did in the past. So, for example, if you started the season really, really hot, but start losing near the end of the season, you don't stay up in the top of rankings. You will start to slide down. But if you started kind of lukewarm at the beginning and start to build your way up, you can easily become a top team. Seattle Seawolves is a team that kind of comes to mind when I think about this results, as well as Houston. So lots of ways that you can make your way to the top of the league. It's all about what you do on the pitch and more about the recency than what you've done in the past. But we'll go over that right now, and it's a lot of fun. Again, I'm not always going to be right about it. I do have somewhat of a little bit of a algorithm, but it really is, again, how I analyze games on the pitch as I watch them. And I try to watch every game. I watched every game of last season. I'll admit to you guys, this week, because of my new job and a couple of things, like including a Rugby Sevens tournament that's coming right around the corner, which I'm really excited about, I'm not going to have time to do a rugby video for the Rugby Sevens LA event that's coming this weekend. But because of that, wasn't able to watch all the games. So full discrepancy, I only was able to watch half of the games. I will try to get through the rest of the games of this week. I promise you guys, next week I will watch all the games because, again, my power rankings really are based on what I see on the pitch, not necessarily just what is in the scoreboard and the score sheet. So, with that being said, some of these teams, again, haven't seen it. I'm going off a little bit on the scoreboard, a little bit more on my guts of how I feel those scores are reflected, what I've seen of the teams and of the rosters. So it is pretty accurate, but don't be surprised if by week two there's drastic changes. Okay? And again, I always love a debate. There's going to be a team in particular I'm going to have to kind of eat my hat on for right now. But again, comparatively to my end of the season, too early power rankings, there might be some changes as this season progresses. Again, any kind of rugby league, it's not necessarily a sprint, it's a marathon. It's really about it's a battle of attrition. What team can stay the healthiest, what team can stay the longest, and be as consistent as possible. So that being said, let's go over week number one power rankings from Rugby 411. So, first and foremost, unfortunately, it was pretty consistent. I think maybe 1 week last season, this team was not in the bottom of the power rankings, but unfortunately they start where they left off. Though it was a really gutsy performance. Your number 12 team right off the bat, the Dallas Jackals. Everybody's favorite second team. And so, the Dallas Jackals, they lost to Houston. We had our watch-along game against the Houston SaberCats, which was a lot of fun. Again, thank you everybody that showed up to watch that. It was a great, great game. A lot of fun. I had a lot of people that were asking questions and just enjoying the game. Again, disappointing loss to Houston SaberCats, 12-33. But there is a lot of potential in this team. As I mentioned in my watch along, it seems that now with this new Argentinian staff, this new Argentinian management, it feels like Dallas finally has a culture, a rugby culture. And when you have the former head coach of the Argentinian national team, you have a winning culture being developed. This Dallas Jackals team was very, very physical. A lot of big players in the front eight. So they were playing a very, very hard-hitting rugby game. Unlike last season. Last season was very much about the high-powered, speedy offense. There was a little bit of that with Dallas. Unfortunately, with this, and again, it's week one. Some of these teams did not have a lot of time to practice together. A lot of teams are kind of being together for, no more than a week or two. So there was a lot of miscues, a lot of mishandling. Dallas had a lot of potential. Unfortunately, every time that they were able to get within scoring distance, they would do a turnover or a mishandling of the ball. And Houston is a team that you can't make so many mistakes. They will capitalize on that. So unfortunately, with the loss, the Dallas Jackals are your number 12 team. Number 11, coming right, and I had to kind of think about this a little bit because I didn't see this game. But again, from the consistency of last season, the way I kind of looked at the rosters for this season, I'm not very surprised that this is the result. Your number 11 team, NOLA Gold, who unfortunately lost to the New England Free Jacks 12-36. Again, didn't watch the game, so I can't really give you a deep analysis of it. I admit I picked New Orleans to win just because, and that's going to be the team there's going to be a lot of contention with. I got a lot of slack from a lot of New England fans on Twitter about my rankings of New England being on their bottom without Bodine Waka, one of the best players in the league. There's just, there's a lack of firepower there. Kind of surprised that not kind of surprised that New Orleans lost, but I am surprised that New Orleans lost by so much. NOLA definitely does not have the firepower that other teams have. They've lost a lot of players as well. So I got to watch the game to see how lopsided it was if NOLA did give up more of a fight. But right now, I do feel NOLA is going to be one of those teams that are going to be pretty much consistently near the bottom. Whether or not New England will stay up the top, again, I'm not ranking them very high simply because the team that they played, I don't feel is a very strong team either. So we'll see. We'll see what New England does. Their next game, I believe, is against the San Diego Legion. That's going to be a huge test for them. So we'll see how that turns out. Next, another game, unfortunately, I did not watch, but a game that I'm very excited to see because this is a game between two very hard-hitting physical teams, but your number 10 team suffering a loss to the San Diego Legion, the Utah Warriors. Now, Utah is a team that I'm always just kind of... On paper, they feel like they're a team that should be better than what they end up producing on the pitch. They did lose Mikey Teo, who is a big, high-powered offensive weapon. He went to San Diego. So I gotta watch the game and see how it was. Utah ended up losing 17-33, pretty lopsided score. But again, San Diego is looking like one of those teams that could be a Shield contender easily. Utah should be a team that competes with them, but San Diego has improved quite a bit. So we'll see if maybe that was just too much for Utah, and maybe Utah just doesn't have the firepower anymore, unlike last season. But even last season, they struggled quite a bit, and that's when they had Mikey Teo on the team. Moving on to number 9, a game that I did watch. A kind of a surprise, but once I watched the game and had some information about their roster, the results were kind of understandable. But your new kids on the block, the Chicago Hounds, is your number 9 team. They unfortunately lost their very first game in Major League Rugby 42-27 to Old Glory DC. Now, Chicago, they played a great game. There was a lot of miscommunication. Unlike, as I mentioned before, with the LA Guiltinis, who kind of right off the bat were able to form a very cohesive team. There seemed to be some miscues at the very beginning. Now, Chicago did have a few preseason games, but the very beginning of the game, Old Glory was able to come out right off the bat with one try right at the very beginning because of just this miscue on the kickoff handling. And then their second try was almost the exact same thing, where Chicago kind of looked like they were expecting someone to tackle, and the Old Glory player just ran right through. So a little bit of mishandling there, miscommunication, but once things started to progress through the game, Chicago started looking like a pretty competitive and competent team. There was the news that I didn't realize, but it kind of made sense that unfortunately 2 players that I felt would contribute hugely and make Chicago into instant Shield contenders, Billy Meeks, Julian Dominguez, both high-powered wingers, were unfortunately not able to play for Chicago, at least in this week, because they're dealing with visa issues. Again, kind of makes sense. I'm a big fan of Billy Meeks. He's a former LA Guiltinis. Very cool guy, very cool follow on the Instagram. If you follow his Instagram, he was not in Chicago at all, hasn't been in Chicago since the Chicago Hounds team has gathered the team to start preseason. So I was wondering whether or not Billy Meeks was even on the team, and apparently he just isn't dealing with visa issues. Who knows how long that's going to last and take up. But if and when Billy Meeks and Julian Dominguez, who is a major powerhouse for the Austin Gilgronis, once those 2 are on the team, along with Mark O'Keefe, along with Bryce Campbell, along with Chris Mattina, oh my God, then you have that high-powered offensive powerhouse that Chicago could be, and that's going to be a very dangerous team. So, from what I saw, very competitive, but at the same time, their opponents, Old Glory DC, looked really good, and we'll be talking a little bit more about them as we move up into the power rankings. Now, another game that I was able to see, and it was a very interesting game, a rematch of last season's championship game, between the reigning and defending New York Ironworkers and the Seattle Seawolves. Ended up being a very interesting match. Unfortunately, your champions were on the losing side of this rematch, and therefore at the number 8 spot is the Rugby New York Ironworkers. Now, the match was a very defensive-minded game. Kind of low scoring, not necessarily boring, but very defensive-minded. As everybody knows, with the Seattle Seawolves, they have something called the Seawall, which is a real thing. It's what basically won them, or at least got them to the championship finals last year after a very rough start. That is a team that started near the bottom and then just started slowly making their way to the top at the end of the season to make their way to the championship game. That Seawall was really dominant with New York. New York was not able to do anything in the game. And also, too, for those who know, Starfire Stadium in Seattle is a very loud stadium. The Seattle football team likes to claim that they have that 12th man on the field. Seattle Seawolves, they do have that 16th man on the field, and that is their crowd. They are immensely loud, and that really helped them as well. Playing in Seattle, in Starfire Stadium, is very tough. Rugby New York, of course, also having to fly across the country. All those factors led to, a little bit of wearing away at the champions, the defending champions. So Seattle was able to come up on top of the win. Big, good win for Seattle. Next, another game I wasn't able to see was between Toronto and Rugby ATL. Toronto was on the losing side, but this was the closest score in the week 1. Toronto losing 10-17 to Rugby ATL. Toronto will thus be the highest ranked losing team, because they are also the only team that lost that got a bonus point. Toronto Arrows coming off of, actually still technically continuing, one of the longest road trips in the history of professional sports. Toronto Arrows were in Silverback Stadium playing against Rugby ATL, unfortunately on the losing side. But again, a very close game. Didn't watch that game, so I don't know how close the score really was. But it was a low-scoring game, so very much a defensive-minded game. Toronto at the bottom of that. And, of course, then that means the winners were on the top of it, and that is Rugby ATL. Again, they're ranked number 6. I don't know how the game went because I didn't see it. So right now, I'm just giving them the benefit of the doubt. Because they were the closest scoring game, I'm putting them very close to each other. Moving on, the number 5 team with a good but not great performance against the Dallas Jackals, you have your Houston SaberCats. Once again, the Houston SaberCats defeating the Dallas Jackals 33-12. Houston looked good, but again, their points were in our watch-along. Some of the people were agreeing that for a team like Houston, the score should have been maybe a little bit more lopsided, but I would like to counter that it might be because, again, Dallas is a much better team than they were before. I think they have a lot more potential. Again, they have a culture. They have an identity. I feel that's really going to turn their season around. I'm feeling much more confident now that I think they'll get at least their first 2 wins in franchise history this season. Houston, though, did put up a good fight and got the win, 33-12. Next, coming off of a win over your reigning defending MLR champions, the Seattle Seawolves start in our top row at number 4. Again, Starfire Stadium, very hard stadium to play at. They had a very good home field advantage. The game was more, again, a defensive game, kind of like the Rugby New York. I'm sorry, kind of like no, it was a very defensive game, Seattle and New York. Interestingly enough, most of the scores were done by penalty kicks. And that's where I want to put the spotlight on one player who was, so far from all the games I watched, which is only half of them, is my player of the week, and that is young South African fly half Jordan Chait, who is on the Seattle Seawolves. You got to think about this. When you are starting ahead of the top point scorer of last year's Major League Rugby season, AJ Alatimu, and a guy who could have easily been Player of the Year, that says a lot. And Jordan Chait delivered 6 for 6. He's had 18 points in the game. Basically, most of the Seattle points, 18 of 25 of Seattle's points were done by Jordan Chait. His kick pass for the scoring try, the only scoring try for Seattle, also contributed to Jordan Chait. So Jordan Chait literally did everything for the Seattle Seawolves. Great player, very talented. He also kicked a very impressive 50-meter penalty kick. And again, just like in regular American football, 50 meters is almost 50 yards. So how often do you see a kicker in the NFL kick a 50-yard field goal? It's really difficult to do. Jordan Chait was able to do it to contribute to the Seattle Seawolves. Very impressive. A guy I'm definitely going to be keeping my eye on, and a guy who can easily become a huge game changer for the Seattle Seawolves. Moving on. New England Free Jacks are your number 3 team. Again, I getting some slack. I definitely ranked them lower than number 3. But does that mean they're number 3 because of how good they are or the quality of their team with that win over NOLA 36-12? I don't know because I didn't see the game. But, for all those New England fans that are going to say, I told you so, it's still the beginning of the season. We've seen teams start at the top 4 in elite and slide their way down. Very possible. Again, I believe the next game between New England is against the San Diego Legion. I feel that's going to be a real tester to see how good this New England Free Jack team is. And speaking of the San Diego Legion, they're your number 2 team with a win over Utah Warriors 33-17. Congratulations to the San Diego Legion. Their home opener at their very new field in San Diego, Snapdragon Stadium on the campus of the University of San Diego or San Diego State. Brought in 11,000 fans. That is a record attendance for any Major League Rugby game. Congratulations to San Diego. It's great to see rugby alive in Southern California. Granted, it's much southern than where I'm from, but it's great to see that happen. I hope that that continues. From what I understand, Snapdragon Stadium is a beautiful, beautiful stadium, completely brand new. I do hope to get out there to watch a game. San Diego is a little bit of a drive from LA, but I'm hoping to watch at least maybe the San Diego-Chicago game later in the season. But again, congratulations, San Diego. Didn't see the game, but again, from just seeing the scoreboard, seeing how good San Diego's team is, in the offseason, they acquired a lot of talented players, a good majority of them former Giltinis, some of them from the Gilgronis. They are a team that's definitely going to be contenders for the Shield. And your number one team, who looked very impressive against the Chicago Hounds, a team that I've been telling people will probably surprise a lot, is Old Glory DC. With a win over the Chicago Hounds, 42-17. Granted, Chicago is a newer team, but there's a lot of talent on this team. Old Glory, man, they looked very, very impressive. Some of the tries they scored were kind of miscues on Chicago's part, but again, you can't make those kind of mistakes with a team as deadly as Old Glory. You have some vets like Danny Tusitalo, Threaten Palermo, and then, of course, Kurt Baker, former New Zealand All Black Sevens player, making his debut. He also scored a try in his very first game. Congratulations to Kurt Baker. Old Glory looked really, really good. So, honestly, they deserve this number one spot. And that's it. That is our rankings. So again, the way it kind of breaks down, you have sort of your elite group here, you're sort of on the fence here, and then your kind of lower class. Hopefully Dallas won't stay down here for too long. For first week, I'll admit it is much different than what I imagined or pictured, kind of how the season was going to end. Obviously, if you look at my way too early season predictions. But, you know, this is first week. Lots of things can change. You can easily see these teams flip around a little bit. Like I said, it'll be interesting to see if Dallas can get out of this spot, at least making this way down here. Let's see what happens to Chicago once Billy Meeks and Julian Dominguez comes in. We'll see if my prediction about the Free Jacks is true. And I'm not surprised, again, with at least these three teams being on top, because those are three teams that I feel will definitely be Shield contenders. So that is our rankings. Let's go now with our SuperBru picks and the results of that. So once again, I want to thank everybody for joining our SuperBru Major League Rugby 411 Pick'em Pool. 18 players, more than we had last season. Thank you very much. And again, guys, for those of you who aren't in but are interested, it's absolutely free. You just got to download the SuperBru app, absolutely free. Sign up for my league. I'll have instructions in the comments below. And it's real simple to do. All you do is you pick the teams you want to win. You pick the points margin and see what the results are. Like I said, it's free, but there is a prize for the top scorer at the end of the season. You will get a Major League Rugby t-shirt of the team of your choice, courtesy of myself. I am also competing in the league, so if I win at the end, I will donate money to my favorite charity at the end of the season. So, without further ado, because I know a certain individual is waiting for these results to be revealed, let's put the results of week number 1. Bam! And congratulations, USA League and Union Rugby fan. Chad, my buddy, congratulations, brother. I know, again, you were happy, you're ecstatic. Maybe I'll admit a little bit cocky with the win. He's been texting me nonstop about this victory. Again, I'm very proud of him because he loves playing the SuperBru picks. He is a huge rugby fan. Guy has been so passionate about rugby ever since I met him. Wonderful person to talk to. So, number 1. But remember, Chad, you had that number 1 before. Early last season, and kind of fell apart too. So, number 1, USA League and Union Rugby fan with 11 points. He had every prediction right. Number 2, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, Jahil Gel is number 2, 9.5 points. The only separation between these two, Jahil Gel got all of the picks correct as well, but the point margin scores USA League and Union Rugby fan was able to get the better, more closer point score spread, so he got the extra bonus points. Number 3, again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this name correctly, Pai Sung Man at number 9, tied with the returning MSDRFC 83. Welcome back, brother or sister. Not quite sure if you're a man or female, but welcome back. You were playing last year. And then another newbie, James A. 6117, rounds out the top 5 with 8 points. Unfortunately, usually I'm pretty good at this. I swear, I'm usually pretty good at this, but I took a pretty bad beating this week. I ended up at number 11, tied with my good friend Frisco Flame at number 12. We both have 5.5 points. Kind of feel better though knowing that at number 15, not picking on you all day long, but our last year's champion all day long at number 15. So, I feel a little bit better. But again, first week, I can easily see all day long shoot up to the top like he did last year. And man, it was literally a chase after that guy throughout the whole entire season. Speaking of which, all day long, I don't know if you watched this video, but you never contacted me back about getting your free shirt that you won last year. Hit me up and I'll send it to you. If I remember correctly, I think you were a Guiltinis fan like myself. I don't think they sell Guiltinis merchandise anymore. If they can, I'll try to get you one. If not, let me know what team you want to support. Maybe the Chicago Hounds, because there are a lot of former LA Guiltini members on there as well. Just let me know what shirt you want. And then I gotta make the mention because the eternal rivalry, a rivalry that is bitter and has lasted since the dawn of time, still runs wild in our pick'em pool as Footy Balls ends up at number 18 with the wooden spoon. He is the eternal rival to our leader, USA League and Union Rugby fan. Footy Balls, Chad wanted me to let you know that you suck. That's his words, not mine. You suck. Sorry. Do better. So, that is our pool. We'll see if Footy Balls can bounce back. We'll see if I can bounce. We'll see if All J Long can bounce back. If any of us can bounce back. Remember, guys, send in your picks for next week's scores. I will have my review video or my preview video for week number 2 right after this video, which I make my selections. Hopefully, I'll have better luck this time than this video. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Again, if you want to join our pick'em pool, sign up. It's absolutely free. I'll have instructions in the description video. It's really simple, really easy. Join in on the fun. Even though you miss week number 1, doesn't mean you can't compete. We've had people miss a couple weeks and still be very close to winning it all. Okay, so again, as always, let me know what you think about my rankings. Let me know if you agree, disagree. New England fans, let me hear it about this, because right now, you guys are more correct than I am. And again, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you on the pitch.